We are working on Khan Academy Quadratics Quiz 4. We're supposed to graph this equation, and the good news is we don't really have to graph it. All we got to do is get 2 points. We've got to find a vertex and we got to find some other point. And when the equation looks like this, one way that we can find the vertex is to first find the axis of symmetry, or the x value for the vertex, or also known as the middle of the parabola. And one way that we find the axis of symmetry is we use this formula for x. We say the AOS is at x equals, and we'll do negative b over 2a. Now we got to figure out what's a and what's b, and the way these equations work is y equals a x squared plus bx plus c. And so the number in front of the x squared is the a, and the number in front of the x is the b. And then we just got to plug them in here. Now the bummer is the number in front of the x squared is a fraction, but don't worry, I'm going to show you how to deal with that. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to do, let's write out what a and b is. A equals the number in front of the x squared, so that's negative 1/8. And b equals the number in front of the x. What is the number in front of the x? I want you to pause the video and see if you can figure it out on your own. Okay, hopefully you and I agree that the number in front of the x is 1. And so this shouldn't be too bad. So we do equals negative b, negative 1, all over 2 times a, which is negative 1/8. Now, that's a bit of a bummer. We don't love the idea of having to do all this math. And you could do it on your calculator, but I want to show you, I would like you guys to be a little more sophisticated with fractions. So I'd like you to write this down and I'd like you to practice this. First of all, when we do 2 times negative 1/8, it's going to be 2 over 1. And so I want to remind you of that. And by the way, the number on top is negative and the number on the bottom is negative. When we multiply positive times negative, we get a negative. When we get a negative over a negative, those negatives just go away. So can we just make our lives simpler by just getting rid of those negatives? Let's do it. Okay, and then it's 2 over 1 times 1 over 8. And now I don't have to have that negative sign confusing me. The other thing is we'll do 2 times 1. Now, one of the things that I've asked you guys to do in the past is to learn how to cancel. And what happens is this 2 and this 8 cancel. And what we end up getting is we end up getting a 1 over here and we end up getting a 4 over here. So it's really just 1 over 4. So I'm going to rewrite this whole thing down here. Our x for our axis of symmetry is going to be 1 over 1 over 4. Now, this is a little bit better, but it's still kind of unpleasant for most of us. So I'm going to show you a trick about how to divide by fractions. What you do is this. You say that this is 1 divided by 1/4. So you rewrite it horizontally. 1 divided by 1/4. Now, there's a trick to dividing by a fraction, and I think you guys have seen it before, but the trick is not easy to do when it looks like this. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to write it like this. And then what you do is you change the divided by to multiply, and you flip the 1 over 4 and make it 4 over 1. And when we do all this, you can see that the end result actually isn't that bad. Now, I believe that if you entered this stuff properly into your calculator, it would get you that 4. What my concern is, it'd be real easy to enter this improperly into your calculator. That's why I really want you to use your brain a little bit, and I want you to write stuff down. One thing I want you to think about is it'd be really nice if you didn't have to enter these negative signs in your calculator and you used your brain to filter that out before you ever enter a thing into your calculator. Also, you could do this in steps. You could do 2 times 1 divided by 8 in your calculator and then write down what you get there, which is probably be like 0.25, and then you'd have 1 divided by 0.25, and even that would be better than entering everything in your calculator. Okay, sorry. That's my little trip about calculators. Now, now that we've got x, we can now figure out where the vertex goes. And the way we do that is we take y equals negative 1/8 times something squared, and then we do plus something minus 4. And some of you are wondering, where did this come from? Well, it came from over here. This is our function. This is our quadratic function. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this 4 and plug it in there. So I'm going to go ahead, and I'll do it as a different color. I'm going to go ahead and circle this like that. And we're going to say, let's put the 4 there and put the 4 there. And then we evaluate this baby. And let's do it. So we get equals, this will be negative 1/8 times 4 squared. We don't square the 1/8, we just square what's in parentheses. And so that'll be 16. And since we're multiplying, I'm going to do times 16 over 1. And that'll make it easier to multiply those two fractions. Plus 4 minus 4. Oh joy, those cancel out. That's just 0. I love that. Hopefully you do too. Okay, then negative times a positive is going to keep a negative sign. And 16 and 8 can cancel. 16 gets 2 8s, and 8 gets 1/8. So it's negative 2 essentially. So let's go ahead and write that. So that is our y coordinate. And what that tells us is our vertex. It says our vertex is going to be at x of 4 and y of negative 2. X of 4 and y of negative 2. And so then I can go ahead and move this to x of 1, 2, 3, 4, y of negative 2, and that's where I'd put the vertex. Then I need one other point. And the good news here is to figure out one other point, there's a couple of tricks. First of all, I recommend using x values that are somewhere near the vertex. So our vertex is at x equals 4. So use numbers like x equals 3 or 5. The other thing is, if those are not easy to calculate, and they're not going to be easy in this case because we've got a 1 over 8, one thing that we could do is we could try putting in x equals 0. X equals 0, if I put x equals 0 in here, this just goes away. And this goes away, and I'm left with y equals negative 4. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to go ahead and make a green dot, and I'm going to say I've got a vertex here at 4, negative 2. X is 4, y is negative 2. There's my vertex. And if I plug in x equals 0, I get y equals negative 4. Here is x equals 0. And here is y equals negative 4 right down there. So I'm going to go ahead and put a dot. And so that's the vertex, and that's one other point on the parabola. And it looks like it's going to be a Frowny-Face parabola. And that's good news because this looks like it's going to be a Frowny-Face parabola. Okay, so putting a lot of stuff together there. I appreciate your patience.